Come on, let me hear you say it just once. Come on.
It has elements very, very much so, very obviously from the Avengers.
No! No, the other thing. Come on, I know it's just dangling out the tip of your tongue. Let me hear it just once, please.
And the biggest film that it seems to borrow from, especially in the last act, is the Avengers.
Wrong!
So I guess if you're one of the mouth-breathing assholes who had a problem with Superman Returns because he didn't hit stuff enough, he didn't hit anybody in the movie, then I guess you'll really, really love these parts of Man of Steel, where it's basically just Superman getting wailed on and wailing back. So, you know, that maybe that's for you. That's your fan service. If this were the real world, would dwarf the destruction of 9/11.
You bloody psychopath! How does it feel, Black? How does it feel to be deconstructed? To be the victim? To watch your dreams die? Let me show you, you self-righteous hypocrite!
Those Earth One comic books that DC Comics has been publishing the last few years that are doing like more modern retellings of their famous heroes, sort of like their version of Marvel's Ultimate Universe. They're retelling familiar stories. They're retelling the origins, etc. But you can tell that they're really self-conscious about how familiar the stories are. So they change things in the story to make them different. They take the familiar story and then they try their damnedest to make it feel unfamiliar. But of course they can't change the underlying story because it is what it is and it has to go a certain place to arrive at this familiar character. So they change all sorts of details. They add things that they don't need to add. They talk about things that don't matter, that are completely irrelevant, just to make it feel like it's something other than what it is. Stupid, boring stuff about, you know, Zod's plan to turn Earth into another Krypton, and the Codex and the crashed Kryptonian ship, and all the sci-fi stuff that is like the least interesting version, the least interesting part of Superman to me personally, is like the outer space. I find that tedious most of the time, and this movie did not persuade me that part of the character is more interesting than I ever thought it was. And it commits another cardinal sin, which was really sad to see because it's the first movie in a while that has really done this. The first superhero movie that has made this mistake, and that is it's a Superman movie that isn't about Superman ultimately. The central conflict in the movie is between Jor-El and Zod.
Okay, so let's talk about the central conflict of the film. The conflict is not between Jor-El and Zod. That's an insane idea. And I don't see how you could get that out of watching this film. The central conflict of the movie is Clark wrestling with, is he human or is he Kryptonian? Right? Not man versus man, it's man versus himself. The central conflict is that decision. And that's externalized in Jor-El and in Pa Kent, right? As his fathers, as his two fathers from this world, right? When Zod is introduced, spoilers, Zod essentially gives Superman a choice between Krypton and Earth, right? Zod is his plan is to destroy Earth to make a new Krypton, which is pretty much what Zod does. It's not that, like the Terrence Stamp Zod is the idiosyncratic adaptation of Zod. This is a much more faithful adaptation of Zod. So he wants to terraform the Earth, he wants to make a new Krypton. Superman has to choose. Am I gonna let Earth be destroyed to make a new Krypton? Or am I gonna, stop Zod and preserve Earth and let Krypton die, right? So this split is at the core of Superman's character. The whole film revolves around that, right? Superman is given, and what makes Superman the compelling character in this is that Superman is given every reason to have contempt for human beings, right? For Earthlings. That's the core of this film. That's the central conflict. There is no way around that. The stuff between Jor-El and Zod, the only reason that you're saying that's the central conflict is because it happens in the prologue of the film, I think. But it's really not the central conflict of the movie. Like, I think you really need to watch this film again, because I think you're really missing the point.
It really feels like a scene from a video game. I mean, even to the point where, like, they fight for a while, and then Zod kind of rises up and takes his armor off, and it's like they move to a different stage of the fight. It's like Zod is the final boss in the game, and it's that trick that they play in video games where, like, you beat the boss and it looks like you've won the game, and then he repowers and rises up and you have to fight him again. That's what it really, really feels like. And I also had the thought in watching all of that carnage when Superman and the Kryptonians, and particularly Zod, are fighting each other and punching each other back and forth, and the city is just being destroyed all around them.
For those just joining us, Metropolis is the scene of widespread destruction this morning as Superman attempts to overpower a creature responsible for a string of grisly murders.